All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Jennifer Fox. I am from Transworld Business Advisors of Boston. Welcome to our January annual meeting. We're very excited to have everyone here today and join us. We have a lot planned for you and a great meeting for you with our NEBBA heroes. So this is going to be an exciting one. And I wish everyone a happy New Year, and I hope everyone had a great holiday. I am going to first hand it over to Barbara for her to make some announcements of board members and officers before we get started.
Good morning, everybody. This is my last official act as the past president. As of yesterday, I am the past president and have passed the past president duties on to Peter Goodman. So thank you to everybody who voted for the NEBBA director slate. I know it was a little clunky this year and late because of the big news with the BBAN merger. And that has all been completed, and the board met yesterday and voted to a new slate of officers. So as you can tell, I'm proud to confirm that Jennifer Fox was elected president. Peter Goodman is past president. Sarah Grossman is vice president. She's also a new addition to the board of directors. Kevin Neary, graciously, thank God, continues to reign supreme as treasurer, Jennifer Mason as clerk, and the remaining directors are myself, Paul Corrigan, Kurt Feldman, Lou Pereira, Peter Quant, Eric Sigmund, and last but not least, the last newest addition to the board of directors is Adam Bauer. So I just want to congratulate everybody on their new roles and look forward to all the great things that are in the future for NEBBA. Jen, did you want me to mention the new members that were also added at yesterday's meeting, or did you want to introduce them? Are they on the call?
I know I saw one of them.
Okay.
You want me to mention
so
that?
We also had two new members added and approved at yesterday's board meeting. Mark Keene from Transworld Business Advisors of Boston, and Trainer Cully from TD Bank. He's up in the New Hampshire area, I believe. And just before I pass things back to Jennifer, I did want to thank David Richmond for his service on the board. We did some reconfiguring in order to stay within certain caps, and also transition some of the BBAN members, the NEBBA/BBAN members, onto the board to help ensure that that transition continues to go smoothly. So I don't want to be remiss in thanking him for all his efforts on the board. And just to remind everyone, if you are a NEBBA member, you are welcome to attend the board meetings regardless of your director status. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for those announcements. And I just want to thank everyone on the board as well, and Peter Goodman for his presidency for the last 5 years. He has done an amazing job as the president of NEBBA. So thank you so much, and to all the board members for all their work. The last almost 2 years in this COVID environment, we had to rearrange the way we run meetings and the way we network, and for all the work that the board has done to keep this going. So thank you so much to everyone for the work. And as Barbara mentioned, the merger has been approved to merge BBAN. So yay, we're going to have some new exciting things that are happening. And I'm going to hand it over to Sarah Grossman, who is really taking the lead with Adam Bauer on this merger, and she's just going to give us a quick update on where it stands.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. So as we discussed, the merger was approved. And so now really what we're working on doing is a couple different things. One, redoing the website. So the website's going to have a better look and feel. There's going to be a lot of great functionality on the back end to make co-broking easier for everybody, because the goal obviously is to facilitate more co-broking, facilitate more transactions. And then we're also going to be working on some kind of policies to put in place to assure that everyone's on the same page as to what the policies are for co-broking, what's expected of both sides, how you should conduct yourself in a co-broke situation, and kind of how that's going to go. So we're going to make sure that everybody is comfortable with that and everyone's on the same page also with what the requirements are to join what we believe is going to be called NEBBA Plus, which is just going to be an additional fee on top of your NEBBA membership, a nominal fee to be able to co-broke. So as things move forward, we'll be giving you guys updates on that, but we are excited to move forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the update and for all the work that you are doing, and congratulations on your role as Vice President. I also want to give a few updates on just on IBBA. We have the IBBA is having a conference that is going to be in May. The registration to go to that conference is going to be out in the next few weeks, so look out for that. But if you do want to book a hotel, you can do that now. And I recommend, if you're even thinking about it, book for that hotel. You could always cancel it because the hotel books out fast. And they also have the IBBA asked you to fill out a survey, has went out quite a few times about market pulse, just what's going on each quarter, how many deals you have done. If you do fill out that survey, you get like a great 200-page report, and it's data that you could use to share with your clients or to share on a lunch and learn, and it gets sent to you. I'll put a link in the chat box of that information to share with everyone. Our next meeting will be February 16th, and we have a speaker that's going to give a meeting about emotional and cultural readiness for M&A transactions. It's going to be a really interesting one. She's done it for other groups like ours. So I think everyone will enjoy the presentation. And I'm going to hand it back now to Peter Goodman, who's going to introduce all of our NEBBA heroes.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. A nice job as your first meeting as president of NEBBA. I'm looking forward to some great stuff from you. Good job. And I hope everyone can hear me clearly, because I got one of those messages that say my bandwidth is low, but hopefully you can hear me okay. All right, so what I'm going to do, we're so blessed to have had over the years such great help from so many important people in the business brokerage industry in New England, be part of NEBBA and to help us. And so this is a great opportunity for us to finally acknowledge them and really hear from them as well. So maybe they can help us out with some tips that they have and give us a little bit of inspiration in our brokerage practice, or not just brokerage, because we have a lender and an attorney. So maybe they have something to say to the attorneys as well. I'm not sure, but anyway, I really am honored to be able to introduce these people. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the introduction, all of them all at once. And there's, I think we have 8 people, and I'm just going to go ahead right now. So I think that Aaron is going to try to sort of spotlight their picture next to mine as we do this. I wish them the best of luck in that. But here we go. First of all, we have George Perry. And George Perry, before retiring, was an M&A attorney for many years. And listen to this, he actually did over 2,000 business closings. He was a frequent presenter at NEBBA, educating our members regarding business brokerage and legal issues. George joined NEBBA in 1980 and was a board member for several years. And he wants us all to know that his only regret is that he never won the annual golf tournament. And that's something that we need to bring back, because we need more golf in NEBBA, because there's hardly any right now. All right, and then our next speaker, Rocco Pezza. Do we have Rocco on? I hope we do. I don't know if I saw him, but Rocco Pezza, he started out in business brokerage right out of Providence College in 1984. He joined a franchise and later bought into it and eventually owned it a couple of years later. So this is a guy that started right out of college into business brokerage. He started with Main Street deals and gradually worked up to mid-market transactions. He was a NEBBA board member and also served as president in the 1990s. Rocco earned his CBI with the IBBA and was one of the founders of M&A Source. Okay, next is Mike Camerta. Mike was the founder of Touchstone Advisors in Connecticut and has 40 years of professional and personal experience in business purchases and sales. He also served on the NEBBA board of directors and is also a past president of NEBBA. And he was also very active in M&A Source as well, and also a real good guy. And I know he's given me some good advice personally. That's really helped me. Okay, next is Aneena Butler. And Aneena is a retired commercial banker with over 30 years of lending experience, including 5 years as a presidential intern at the SBA. So it's important to note that we have many people that are what we call right now associate members in NEBBA. In other words, they're not business brokers, they're some other tangential industry, but those people also serve on the NEBBA board. In fact, we recently had a president in Barbara Aneena, who is a lender, and she was, I think, as far as I know, she was the first non-business broker to be president of NEBBA. But anyway, back to Aneena. She served on the NEBBA board of directors for many years and was a very strong contributor to our organization during that time. Okay, next is Dave Larson. And Dave started his company, Larson Associates in Connecticut, with just a small staff of agents. He was one of the early members of NEBBA in the 1980s and remained a member for over 30 years and was a NEBBA board member during some of those years. Dave has been retired for several years now and splits his time between Florida and Massachusetts. Okay, next we have Harry Mink. And Harry has 20 years of professional experience in business brokerage of Main Street businesses, as well as M&A transactions of lower and middle market businesses. I know he had his own firm, which was more of a Main Street type of firm here in Massachusetts, but I believe he joined Touchstone Advisors for several years at the end of his career. He was on the NEBBA board for many years and also served as president of NEBBA. And he is also he's also a lifetime member of the IBBA, which is interesting. Okay, Chris George. If you could see Chris George's resume, you would have the same problem I did in trying to condense something down for this meeting, but he has more certifications than you would believe. But I guess in his bio, I'm just simply going to say that he is a business appraiser, broker, M&A advisor, and consultant specializing in the valuation, sale, and financing of closely held companies, and is also a qualified expert witness in Massachusetts. Of course, everyone knows him from George & Company out of Worcester. Chris has been a member of NEBBA for over 30 years and also served on the board of directors and as president of NEBBA. And then lastly, we have Bob Ehrenberg. And Bob, great guy, has 38 years of professional experience in business brokerage of Main Street businesses. Bob was on the board of NEBBA for over 10 years and was vice president. He's also one of the founders of the IBBA. So what a group we have here today. If we could somehow condense all the knowledge, we would have like super broker, right? If we could put you all into one person. But we're really proud to have all of you speaking with us here today. So what we've asked all of these former members of NEBBA to do today is to tell us two things, and they can change it up a little bit if they'd like to. But basically what we want to hear from them on is, number one, what made you so successful in business brokerage that you can sort of, hand off to the younger brokers out there? And number two, what's the number one tip you have to business brokers in their brokerage practices? Or it could be, like I said, if you're an attorney, it could be to the lawyers. If you're a lender, it could be to the lenders, whatever you think makes sense. And we're going to start off with George Perry. So can we get George Perry up here on the screen with me? Hello, George. You got to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay, good. All right. So Take it away, George. You're number one, so you're on the spot.
Thank you. I appreciate going first. And I say hello to all these good old faces I see here. Hello, Kevin, again. I didn't see you before, but yeah. Let me tell you, I'll start by just saying that when I first became an attorney, I spoke to a friend who had been in practice for a few years, and he gave me some good advice. And he said, you don't have to be the most brilliant genius to be a successful attorney, but what you really need to do is to respond to clients, respond promptly and competently, and show your concern for them. And I've tried to do that in my practice for over 40 years. It proved to be excellent advice that he gave me, and I'm sure it applies to business brokers also. I never wanted the sun to set on a phone call or an email, and tried to keep my clients' communications always open. And that led not only to satisfied clients who bought and sold businesses, but also to many referrals. One of the people that we missed today is Joe Squazzero. He was a great guy. I worked with him for many years. I had a closing with him with somebody whose last name happened to be Patel. The first of over 500 closings of that person and his many associates and relatives and friends. So the quick response and the competent work led to many other opportunities. I worked with NEBBA in two different ways. Very often I represented buyers or sellers who were referred to me, but I also, with the approval of the Board of Bar Overseers, represented the brokers as an escrow attorney at times in which I prepared the documents for buyers and sellers. And that facilitated a lot of the transactions, avoided a lot of the negative interactions, and some of the attorneys involved also appreciated that, and again, trying to do that as quickly as possible. I will tell you about one individual client with whom I met for the first time at a closing with one of the NEBBA offices. He was actually French and was selling a French restaurant. His name was Gilbert. He was 68 years old, and I figured this would be one transaction with him. This was an escrow closing. He appreciated the prompt service. I guess he had worked with larger firms with slower service and bigger bills. But he told me, be sure to bring your invoice with you to the closing. And I bought wrote my bill, I handed it to him, I held it up to him, and he looked at me and he scowled and he said, George, this bill, I didn't know what he was going to say. Too low, he said, it's too low, take it back. And you do not need to itemize. I figured that would, again, that would be a one-time opportunity, but he appreciated what I had done for him. And at the age of 68, he said if he had stayed in Paris, his biggest decision would have been at the age of 55, shall I sit in a park bench over here, or shall I sit in a park bench on the other side of the park? He said he was much more eager to keep active, and so he came to America. He was actually an engineer. He had several companies, and at the age of 68, he started investing in real estate in Boston, buying commercial buildings and creating commercial condominiums. And I worked with him for 24 years until he was 92 years old. And as I said, he drove to my house. He was the last person at the time of the pandemic. He came from Connecticut. He had moved. Unfortunately, he died in this past year at the age of 93. But it was a wonderful opportunity originating from a single NEBBA closing. And again, the quick response he appreciated. What I did for a number of times was to have seminars with the business brokers, and I prepared a 3-page closing checklist. I'm not sure if you still have that. It's available if anybody wants it. It was an effort to enable people to plan ahead at the very beginning, to think about all the possible contingencies that might develop so that you won't be surprised. And the brokers who were most successful viewed the transactions as challenges, not necessarily not necessarily as dealing with enemies, but trying to solve a puzzle, putting together the pieces. And the NEBBA people I found were the ones who were the most successful, responded to these challenges and planned ahead. So planning ahead is extremely important.
Great.
I'll tell you about a negative experience I had early on, one of my earliest escrow closings. I did a closing of a small retail business. The husband was buying it for his wife. The broker told me that after a short time, she was really not feeling at all competent about running a business, dealing with people. She wanted to just shut it down and walk away. However, what had happened at the closing was that the buyer and the seller had said to me when this was an escrow, when I asked for the landlord's consent for the lease assignment, the seller took up the conversation and said, well, you know, the buyer and I have decided we don't want to upset the broker at this point. We'll deal with that later. We're just going to go ahead as if we are partners, and eventually we'll get around to it. It turned around that the so-called seller didn't really have total ownership of that business. And rather than just walk away from it, they hired a lawyer who sued me for failing to get the lease assignment. That was an educational experience for me. I never again left any of those kinds of contingencies outstanding when somebody told me something like that, because that was such an important part of it. So I prepared a document, which I use at every closing thereafter, and which is available if you want it, just stating, I as the buyer or I as the seller agree that this particular aspect of the transaction remains incomplete, and we take responsibility for completing it after the closing. Again, making sure that there were no surprises and keeping everything in writing where there's an issue. So that was a form I prepared for the NEBBA members, and I used it at I kept it with me at every single closing.
Okay. All right, George. Listen, thank you very much. We got to move on because we have several speakers to go. Good advice. And by the way, do you still have that checklist?
I have that, and I have one other form which I'll tell you about, which is a way of hiring a lawyer, what you should be looking for, and finding a lawyer to represent people on business transactions. That's another form. I'll send you those 3 forms.
Yeah, please do. Send them off to me, and I'll make sure we get them out to everyone at NEBBA. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I want to thank all of you, because my success really was largely the result of dealing with brokers from NEBBA who referred business to me. So that was a large part of my personal success. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, George. Okay, next up is Rocco Pezza. And I'm going to introduce Rocco. Although we already introduced him. Sorry about that. Okay, so Rocco, you're actually still in the business, but you've moved up to sort of larger M&A transactions, I understand. But and you're in Rhode Island. And but why don't you tell us what you have to say today to the NEBBA folks?
Well, Peter, I know we're pressed for time, so my remarks are going to be relatively concise and short. Again, I like to also say hello to a lot of old friends that I saw really briefly. Dave, I'll have to make a call to you, Dave. It's been ages. Anyways, I want to say there are a lot of people that predated me since I'd gotten the business a little early. And by the way, the mistake getting in this business out of college, I'll start with that. But a lot of important people that were in the founding of the IBBA and NEBBA many years ago that I learned a lot from. And a lot of them, I'm not sure, I know a few of them are still with us, but some number of have left us. Tom West, Darryl Fouts, Ron Nash, Ted Burbank, Charlie Perkins, Brian Knight, Ed Telling. And I know in the last few years, we've lost quite a few of those people, but they were great sources of knowledge and people that basically, that I was very, I guess, blessed to know. So going from there, short, I guess in brief, I think what worked successfully for us was oftentimes specialization, where we spent quite a bit of time in a given vertical, where we were able to basically leverage the knowledge of that industry, buyers, sellers, and then you also have to make decisions on geography, what you're going to target. So there's a lot of targeting questions that come into specialization, but I felt that was a very successful strategy that we used over the years. Establishing, bilateral strong relationships. Another foundation of people you could trust, people you could work with. I think in terms of basic deal making, it was really basically establishing trust with clients. And I think what George was articulating was that getting the issues on the table early so that you understood what you were dealing with. And the most important thing was smoking as many issues out as you could to get resolutions where you could, but also that establishes trust up front, because as everybody knows, that once you are at the table, when the money's on the table and you're trying to move the client into making compromises and they feel blindsided, well, they're trusting you, and you know, they're viewing you as a broker just trying to collect a fee, really starts to take precedence, and your ability to basically move them becomes substantially more difficult. So in the deal-making process, it's really understanding the issues, getting them up on the table up front, solving as many as you can, but also alerting the client to the issues so that when they do surface, you know, you can basically say, you know, that you've smoked them out and you were there, and this isn't something that it's a surprise to them, and that aids in basically getting to resolution. And then lastly, I would just say is selling. I mean, obviously, I guess, you know, failing that oftentimes we ran into as we get into deals, our effort at selling new customers declines, and you're into somewhat of a boom bust cycle. So I would say that basically the last point I would make is just make sure that you're constantly selling and, you know, bringing clients in and moving them to the pipeline. That's what I would say, Peter.
Okay, I really appreciate it, Rocco, and thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Okay, and I'm going to move it along to Mike Camerta. And Mike was the founder of Touchstone Advisors in Connecticut and has 40 years of professional and personal experience in business sales. And Mike served on the NEBBA board of directors and is also a past president of NEBBA and on the M&A Source board. I know I'm introducing people for the second time, but go ahead, Mike. Tell us all about what you have to say to the brokers out there. Oh, you're muted. Wait a minute. You have to unmute, Mike.
No. You have to put the same on.
In the lower left of your screen is a thing that says mute, and you click it.
Okay, hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll just tell one story, and which is how I first got involved as a business intermediary, business broker. And that's 15 years ago. I was deciding what I should do for my fourth career. I had 3 separate careers, and so I started Googling different things, and up came being a business broker. And that led me to attend my first NEBBA meeting. I sat next to Harry Mink, and who of course I know till today. And there was someone, I can't think of his name, someone here will probably remember it, but during the introductions, there was this older fella who got up and said, I just closed my largest deal. Everything went smoothly. I had a very good client. We sold the business relatively quickly. I got the biggest fee of my life. And then he did this. He says, I love this business.
Joe Squizzaro.
Joe Squizzaro.
That's exactly who it was. All right. And that I made my decision that evening. I said, I'm going to do this. If this guy can be that enthusiastic and joyful about it, this is what I'm going to do. So for the next 7, let's say, years, I worked at selling Main Street businesses. Didn't know a thing about it before that. And but I joined NEBBA, which led me to join IBBA, which led me to, and for the next, I don't know how many years, 7, I went to virtually every NEBBA meeting, and I went to 2 conferences a year at IBBA, and I learned the business. And I was successful because of what I knew and what I had gotten at these conferences. The people I had met with at these conferences were very generous to me. And then I joined M&A Source, moved up a little bit, and became very involved in M&A Source. I was on their board of directors, and I was the chair and that kind of thing. But most importantly, I went twice a year, went to the seminars, went to the breakouts, and met people there that I could have discussions with. So the first piece of advice that I would give to someone starting out in this field is find places like NEBBA, like IBBA, find places to learn and go. Second thing is, especially when I was in M&A Source, but even at IBBA, I always had at least one person far away. The most recent person I had was a fellow named Scott Bushke out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. All right. And we would get together every conference and share anything and everything about our practices. We were never going to compete. So we would share forms, we would share hiring practices, and how do you solve this problem and that problem. And it was those two things my entire career, both at IBBA and M&A Source, those business. I just learned how to do it. All the information is there. All the people are there. All the support is there. Someone that's starting out just has to take advantage of it.
Great. And by the way, I was just talking to Scott Bushke at the last conference in October, and he mentioned you, and he said, you know, because, you know, as you recall, we brought Scott Bushke out to speak at a NEBBA meeting. Yep. When he was the president of the IBBA, and apparently right after the meeting, you two sat down and on a napkin worked out how you were going to set up IBBA and M&A Source. Mm-hmm. Right? True. So that's a true story, right?
True
okay,
story.
That happened at a NEBBA meeting, everybody. Remember that. Okay.
Because there was a big disagreement between the two organizations.
Right.
Very big. It looked like it was going to the courts. And the biggest problem was the people at IBBA and M&A Source didn't trust each other. Oh. And but Scott and I did. And so we said, put all the BS aside. It's got to go this way. Yep. And eventually it took 3-4 years, but it did.
Okay. Well, good work there. Thank you very much. Okay, Mike, I appreciate your remarks. We're going to move on to our next speaker. Okay, which is Aneena Butler. Aneena, she's a banker. So Aneena, hello and welcome to the NEBBA meeting, and thanks for being here today. And what made you successful in banking?
What made me successful in banking is not what made me successful with business brokers, Peter.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. You say what you want to say.
I will. Thanks. First of all, thank you very much. It's good to see these faces. It's been many years for a lot of you. When Peter first called, he talked about how they were going to get the old timers together. As we talked about it, I said, Peter, I think you can find a better name. So we became heroes as the conversation went on.
That's what I did.
Yep. So now we're heroes. I want to talk just a minute. I don't want to. We don't have that many bankers, but you all work with bankers and lenders. And I think you know that this business with banking and lending and business brokerage has evolved. And we were right there doing that, trying to make this work. Barbara certainly was involved, Beth, Jennifer, Jonathan, they were all involved with this vanguard to get banks to take a look at business brokerage as a possible way to lend money. Banks are always looking to put money out, usually looking to put money out. And this is in many cases, these are fine businesses that we're representing and financing, or you're selling. So to get them to take a look at that I had two goals on both sides. One with the bank was to get them to take a look at brokerage as a serious way to lend money. And the second thing was working with the brokers to gain their trust, so that my thing was always, I wanted to give them an answer. I wanted to give them a pre-screen, and I wanted to give them an answer if I could do the deal or not, and how secure I was with that, so that we wouldn't be marching downstream and then have the thing blow up in our face as we went along, because the bank made a decision that was, now you can't control bank committees entirely, but you can work at it. And we worked very hard. I think all of us on this call know that we have worked very hard to do that. So, and the third thing, and the last thing I'm going to say, is to talk about intangible value in a banking situation, and the support that SBA lent into the situation to allow us to lend to loans that were pretty much unsecured, even though they cash flowed. And that's okay in larger transactions, but in smaller companies, that was pretty novel at the time. So I think we worked on all of those, and I think we brought the whole relationship of banking and brokerage along, and I really respect that and appreciate what everybody in this organization did to help with that. And thank you all very much.
Okay, very good. And Nina, thank you for all your support of NEBBA over the years and all that you helped us out with. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Okay, good. We're going to move along now. We're doing really well here, I think. Okay, next up is Dave Larson, Larson Associates in Connecticut. And hello, Dave. How you doing today? Oh, you got to unmute. Go to the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Click on that mute button.
Okay.
Good. I can hear you now. Super.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this. It's great to be on this panel and to see some old friends I haven't seen for years. Hopefully I can make some contact after this meeting with them.
Great.
Love to do that. But to give you a little bit of my background and so forth, I was a business broker, general business broker in Connecticut started in the big time VR era back in the late 70s. In Connecticut, where I had moved after growing up in the Boston area and graduating from Tufts with a math degree and working as an actuary actually for an insurance company in Connecticut during the 70s, shifted careers obviously, and in 1981 started Larson Associates, a general business broker, and grew with a partner to have 10 associates working for us, and eventually split up with my partner in 92, became Larson Associates, and continued as a general business broker in the Connecticut area until I retired in early 2017. I had a very technical orientation from my past as an actuary and as a math major when I came into this business, and I was overly technical and had to learn as I went along that business brokerage was largely a people business. And while it was helpful to have some math and technical skills, I learned over the years and quickly enough that it was mainly a people business. And those are the points that I would stress with newcomers coming into it who might have a technical background or other than a business that really requires a lot of people skills. It really is a people business. And I think George Perry mentioned the ability to manage people through a project. That's important. Sales ability. I think Rocco mentioned that, and that is very important. Somebody, a friend of mine a few years ago said something really important to me that I've remembered ever since, which I think is so true. It's that in all these communications that we have with the various people that we're dealing with, people in the long term will not remember what you said to them, but they will remember how they made them feel. They won't remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to think about not just the words you're going to say, but how you're going to make somebody feel when you're talking to them. Important to listen. I think the things that probably made us successful is I got to have at least a modicum of those skills. NEBBA was definitely a help when I joined NEBBA in the 80s and learned a lot from the other brokers in there, and from materials such as the checklist that George Perry was talking about. It was really helpful. I think I probably got more than I gave, and I'm appreciative and grateful for that. So it was a long ride. It probably wasn't the career that would necessarily enrich me as much as perhaps if I had stayed an actuary, I don't know, but it was a course that I wanted to take. I wanted to be more on my own, and I pretty much enjoyed the ride. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Some good sage advice, much appreciated, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Okay, we're going to move along to, it looks like it's Harry Mink's turn. Okay, Harry. Hello, Harry. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Peter. Unlike the people that preceded me, I started in the business by getting fired from high tech. And so I was in, like some of our buyers back in the early days, they were looking for a business to buy to replace a job because they got kicked out of corporate America. So I networked and puzzled about what I was going to do next, being 55, and people weren't hiring geezers, 55-year-olds at that time in sales, even though I was very successful. And I ran into a couple of people that are worth mentioning, Tom West and Ed, God, I forgot his name.
Ed Pendarvis?
Ed Pendarvis. How could I forget Ed Pendarvis? And between those two guys, it was easier for me to work with Tom West, since I lived in Acton, and at the time he lived in Concord. We're about 3 miles apart, house to house. And he basically advised me, and this is after he had left VR, not to join a franchise, but just do the following things. And this is my advice to anybody and everybody: join NEBBA, join IBBA, and join M&A Source. I'm repeating what Mike Camerta said. Attend all meetings, take classes, network like hell, because you're going to find world level experts at every meeting. You know, that's my best advice. However, it took me 14 years to come to the point that I think Camerta came to after 2 years of sliding from Main Street to doing low-end middle market business. And there's something called a balance sheet that most business brokers ignore, because it's not that important for the mom and pop businesses that are in that area. And so my advice is, take seriously the organizations that are built to educate you. Listen and learn outside the classes, and keep tabs and make relationships with people that you can reach out to wherever they are in the country or out of the country, which I've done through my career. But you know, if I were to have it to do over again, I would follow my own advice and not take so long in doing mom and pop businesses. I was very comfortable and very successful at doing that, but I denied myself, I think, a lot of income. It's just as hard to do a flower shop as it is to do a manufacturing business. It takes a lot, same effort, but boy, the commissions are a big difference.
Right.
So thank you very much. The organization, I think, has come a long way since I was a president. Peter, I think my hat's off to you, and Barbara and Gary Rayberg, people that followed me. I was Mike Camerata's vice president, and he sort of recruited me for that so that he could leave and put me in as president, and somehow I got voted in. But thank you very much. This is a great organization.
Okay, Harry, thank you for all your excellent advice, and you're absolutely right. Pay it forward, but get out there, join these organizations, show up at meetings, network with people, learn. Terrific advice. Thank you. Okay. All right, next we're going to go over to Chris George, the man with the endless resume. I'm telling you, if you saw it, you wouldn't believe it. And but here he is to help us out with business brokerage. Chris George of George and Company in Worcester. Let's get him up on the screen. I know we just got his phone. Or we don't have
Just
video.
thank your lucky stars that all you can see is my name. I'm very honored to be part of this organization and to be affiliated with such wonderful people that I've grown up with in this industry. I was a serial entrepreneur and had accumulated 16 different businesses up until the year of 1981 when I came in contact with the gentleman named Ted Burbank, because I had well over 100 employees at the time and I needed to get rid of some of them. So Ted came down and in his inimitable style signed me up for 2 of my companies. And he said, you know, if we sell one, that's fine. He sold both of them within a month's time and handed me a couple of huge checks. And I said, my God, what an easy way to make money. That was the beginning of my learning. But I was also a psychology major in college. And as David said, and several other people too, it really is a people business. And you have to talk to people, like people, and be on their level as much as you can. The funny thing about the Burbank story is that I went into business almost immediately after Ted gave me those 2 big checks. And I realized what an easy way this was to make money. And Ted had taken a couple of pictures of me standing next to my Porsche and put them up in his office saying, Chris George recommends the Burbank Group, even though I was in the business. And every time I went into his office, I would take them down and he'd hang them back up. So it's pretty funny. But we struggled through, like most of us, doing Main Street deals, and eventually ended up with about a dozen brokers on staff, which we still have. And I want to tell you a couple of interesting stories, although I don't want to miss one. We were invited up to Toronto in 1980 to talk with the Remax people who offered us all of the New England franchises. And we said, oh no, we're smarter than that. We can do it ourselves. And someone had mentioned, don't buy a franchise. Well, that was one of the bad moves I made. But in 1990, we were going through that recession and we moved into my home. Had 3 brokers working out of my basement along with my wife as our admin. And one day, these 2 suits came down the stairs into my basement. And they didn't have an appointment, but they specifically asked to speak with me. They were with a company called IPC Information Systems in the South Shore of Connecticut. And they told me they wanted to hire me to represent them in Global Crossings acquisition. And I said, well, gee, you're publicly traded. I don't think I can do that. And they said, well, no, we've already talked about that. We'll hire you as an advisor. For 24 months post-sale, I received very handsome checks. And that was a big surprise. Another story I got to tell everyone because I think it's a riot. I got a call from a guy named Luigi, and Luigi said to me, hey, I got a welding business and my lawyer, Bobby, he told me to call you and sell my welding company. He said, you come down to my business, just knock on the door and I'll be there. I said, well, we really work by appointment. He said, no, you don't need an appointment. I'm here from 7 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. So I went down to this little gray building that he told me to go into, pounded on the door, no one answers. I said, damn it, I knew I should have made an appointment. But I went next door to this gray building, just asking if anyone knew of this guy named Luigi. And the receptionist picked up a microphone and went, hey, Luigi, someone here to see you. Ended up, after all was said and done, the building was about 100,000 square feet. They were doing, I forget, 30, $40 million a year or something like that. Luigi brought me up to the conference room that I don't think I'd ever seen in person and handed me his financials. And after I picked myself up off the floor, we ended up selling the company for $36 million. And the attorney called me up and said, when are you going to come down and pick up your check, which was almost $1 million? And I said, oh, just drop it in the mail. He hand delivered it. He said, I'm not doing that. But you know, the secret to this business has been repeated several times. Be honest, be hardworking, know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, surround yourself by a group of professionals that do know what they're doing so you can get the answers. And NEBBA is the perfect place to start. We have so many experts in the New England Business Brokers Association that you really don't need to have all kinds of other people around. And one thing I've loved about NEBBA since joining 35 or however many years ago it was, and by the way, I just celebrated my 40th year in the business, but you got to have the right people working with you. And that's where George and Company has been blessed to have people like Jeff LaFave, who's been with me for 35 plus years, has just been incredible. But I do want to tell you one bad story that turned out into a good story. I was invited to sell a yacht charter company that was down on the British West, I'm sorry, oh goodness gracious me, down in the British Islands. And the sellers of the company said, we'll pay your airfare and we'll put you up on a 90-foot yacht if you want to come down and learn about our business. So one of my associates and I jumped on a plane, went through Puerto Rico, took a puddle jumper across, got put up on this 90-foot yacht with a chef next door who was cooking our meals and supplying our booze. We introduced the buyer to the company and then never heard another word from the seller. So I guess the word to the wise is make sure you got really good contracts.
Exactly.
Although the biggest problem was Tortola is very much like the Cayman Islands, and it's virtually impossible to get information. But the buyers still talk to me. It amazes me. So one other thought, join the Better Business Bureau if you're not a member. I get more people that call and say, I see you have a BBB A+ rating. And that A+ rating has brought us hundreds of listings over the years.
Interesting.
So we make a big point of putting that on all our online advertising.
Okay.
For those that are new to the industry, be honest, be hardworking, know what you're doing. For those that are old to the industry, you already know. The biggest thing that caused me to retire was the last person that said to me, I changed my mind and it will never happen again.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, great talk. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all you do for NEBBA. All right, good. So, and last but not least, we have the great Bob Ehrenberg from New Hampshire. And I know he's got some great things to tell us, and he really had to kind of go out of his way to make himself available for this meeting, which we appreciate. So Bob Ehrenberg, how you doing up there? You're in Florida right now, I think? Or are you in New Hampshire? Oh, Bob, you've got to unmute yourself.
I did. There I
Okay,
am.
there we go.
Palm Beach.
Palm Beach, good for you. Okay.
I'm in Palm Beach, and I went way out of the way to come to our place in Palm Beach, and I am suffering incredibly.
Oh,
We came for a couple of weeks, but the first thing that I want to say is, Chris George, you owe my wife a call. It's your birthday and her birthday together back in March, and you never called, and she's very upset. Anyhow, hi, Chris. Hi, everybody. Dave Larson.
Hey, Bob.
You can't say enough for that, man. We did a visiting angel business together, which was one of the great experiences of my 38 years in this business.
Oh,
And I
thank you.
think the
Appreciate
world
that,
of this guy for sure. And that's terrific. Harry Mink, there's too many stories that he and I can tell. And I think it's wonderful. And I just can't keep going through the names. Warren Burkholder and I, we started together going way back when, 38 years ago. And I made the mistake of, was out on a place that we had some island property out called Dow Island on Lake Winnipesaukee, and I brought the newspaper with me. And I made a mistake because I opened it up and there it was, VR Business Broker Franchise for Sale. And so I said, and it kept coming up no matter what I did. And so I called the next day and I said, I've never heard of you. I've never heard of business brokerage. And his name was Al Nagy. And he was the marketing manager for VR. And the Hustle, George Nadeff, the founder of the company. And he said, what are you interested in? I said, I don't think you're in New Hampshire. And he said, we're not. I said, I want it. Because I came from corporate America, you were supposed to do that. So I agreed to open 5 offices over time with my wife and I. And lo and behold, we managed to put that all together. And then I realized what the hell I had done, and we quickly opened 3 of the offices and said, you know, I'm running out of steam here and also running out of money. And so we started to, we did open them up, but then we quickly marketed them. And I said, you know, I got to do what I do best, which is sell. And so I concentrated on my office, a little community office, population 10,000 in the state of New Hampshire. And lo and behold, we became the #1 office in a few years in the United States out of 360 offices. And so I learned my lesson to do what you do best, which was sell and not necessarily manage, and talk people to people, and be honest and forthright, be able to understand what it meant that the figures are were not always written by Abraham Lincoln, and recognize that you got to deal with cash flow sometime that's unmentioned. And but we learned it, and the truth is if the better the records, the better the deal. Communicate like crazy. That's the way to make it happen. So 38 years later, we're sort of in the semi-retirement mode, working with an affiliate NEBBA member known as the Norwood Group, and they have a business brokered expertise fellow by the name of Joe Robinson, who is really doing an outstanding job of working together closely. He worked with Don Marshall prior to me. Then he decided to like somebody. No, are you only kidding? We all got along really great. And Don was my driver to go to every meeting down there in Massachusetts at night because I never knew where I was going. So I miss him. He lives in Florida too. So we're back in New Hampshire. We come back and forth here. We enjoy what we do. And I hope that the officers are, you know, have done it. We've done it with it. The greatest thing about it, my office manager, our office manager has been with us 24 years. My wife of 48 years, 58 years. She just reminded me, I kind of blew 10 years. So 58 years of a marriage to my associate partner and love of my life. And so everything has moved along pretty well. So we're all very happy about that. And I hope that everybody concentrates, be trustworthy, talk simple, keep it simple. I always believe in Life magazine, better a picture than a technical book. And we seem to stay with Main Street, and I will not knock franchises at all. We kept it with 10 years, and we had 30 of the greatest offices in New England at the time. And we mentored each other. We partnered with each other. My other partner was that guy by the name of Warren Burkholder. He kind of worked out pretty good too. And so my other partner was a Jack Sullivan out of Rhode Island, and he ended up buying VR, but then he ended up buying a payroll service and built a wonderful company. To this day, we're all great friends, even a distance apart. So we've made great friends, great relationships. It's been a fun business. It's not always, you better have the #1 word to me, tenacity. Stay with it. Don't be afraid. You're going to have ups and downs with this business. There's going to be some great years. We always say Main Street America, but it's really not Main Street. It's some smaller business. But in our point of view, from where we were located in New Hampshire, much more general business brokers. So whether we sold the Conway Scenic Railroad, which we did, which was one of my favorite sales ever, going back some 25, 30 years ago, it's all good. And we don't care if a business is $20,000, $10,000 commission or $100,000. We like the big ones, sure we do. But if you concentrate too much on the big ones, sometimes you forget all the ones that are going to keep paying the bills.
Right.
So general business brokerage is also very good and good for anybody, especially depending where you are and what you're doing. Thank you so very much.
Bob, thank you for your remarks, and I'm so glad you got to join us here today. And I'm sure I speak for everyone now when I say what a great meeting this was, and really one of the best ever that NEBBA has had. Hearing from all you guys has been absolutely fabulous, and it really connects us to the past and lets us, it gives us a good inspiration in order to promote our own practice and pay it forward and bring it to the next generation as well. So this is all fantastic. And I guess should I open it up if anybody has any questions? If you have a question, feel free to speak up. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds. 1, 2.
Hi, it's Jennifer Mason, and I want to thank you all very much. I want to give a special shout out to Aneena Butler. Not everyone knows how much of a mentor she has been, not only to me, but, you know, Jen McKay, Kathleen Kelly, Barb Arena. There were not a lot of executive women in banking, and she pounded through not glass ceilings, but concrete ceilings to get where she was. And she always had a terrific way of dealing with people. And I still use many of her techniques today when I'm presenting to the loan committee that she taught me, which is to be very prepared and to not let them beat you down. And
Good to hear.
you know, we all owe her a debt of gratitude, and she was helpful in really opening up the lending side of business to women, which was not always an option for us.
Terrific to hear. Thank you for adding that, Jennifer. Okay, anybody else? George Perry, at least you popped up on my screen.
I'm here.
Okay, all right, I think maybe that's it. Okay, we're Jennifer Fox, I'm gonna hand things back over to you.
Yeah, no, thanks again, everyone, for this meeting was absolutely perfect and amazing. Thank you, George, Rocco, Mike, Anita, Dave, Harry, Chris, and Bob for joining us today and sharing with us all of this knowledge. Like, I can say, like, personally, like, I joined NEBBA 6 years ago, and I wouldn't be where I was today if it wasn't for everyone in this organization. So thank you all. Our next meeting is going to be February 16th. It will be a virtual meeting. Hopefully we will be back in person soon. We are going to try to get back to person as soon as possible. So we'll be keeping you up to date on that situation, but we will be continuing these virtual meetings, and they've been running smoothly and providing education to all of our members. So next meeting, February 16th. And thanks again for everyone being here today, and enjoy your day.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Hey, Brace.